Thousands of National Guard forces deploying across the country in response to protests and riots. This morning, the police chief in Louisville says officers and a guardsman opened fire onto a group of protesters that first shot at them. One person was killed in the exchange, and calls are now growing for the Trump administration to take control of the Guard. But the White House says there are no plans for that just yet.
We're not going to federalize the Guard at this time, but if necessary, we have further military assets that can be deployed, military police units and that sort of thing that can be deployed. If the governors and the mayors need it and they can't get control of the situation, we're there as a reserve, and we'll do whatever the governors or mayors need to help keep control of their cities.
Joining us now to discuss all of that is Florida Congressman Michael Waltz. He is also a member of the House Armed Services Committee and a former Green Beret commander. Congressman, good morning. Thanks for being here. So expand on what we just heard and what you would ultimately want to see happen on behalf of the White House based on the growing riot situation that we've seen in this country.
Yeah, thanks, Sandra. So to add on to that piece from Ambassador O'Brien, the National Security Advisor, the Guard works for the states. It works for the governors. And importantly, it has some things that they can do that, say, your active duty, like the Marine Corps or the 82nd Airborne, can't do. Mainly, they have arrest authority under our Constitution. The National Guard trains for these types of missions, whether it's civil unrest, natural disasters like hurricanes, wildfires, supporting huge events. So they train for this in direct support to law enforcement. But importantly, Sandra, they're from the community. You know, they have day jobs that are in the community. They live in the community. They're not brought from all over the nation that live on a base like active duty. So it's important that we have that localized effort. You know, there was an amazing kind of exchange during the Baltimore riots where one of the rioters was yelling at the guardsman, "Get out of here and go home." And the guardsman replied, "Well, I'm from here. I live 4 blocks from here." So that community engagement is also important. Here's the distinction, and here's what needs to happen, is these mayors and these local elected leaders need to start getting tough and drawing the distinction between peaceful protests and looting and rioting and punks like what we're seeing with Antifa. And I think that's what the country is calling for. And, you know, we had a situation last night where the mayor of D.C. didn't put a curfew in until 11 p.m. Yet all over Florida and other cities, it was at sundown, and you saw a church get burned down. And, I was just down there, Sandra. It looks like a war zone down there, and I fought all over the world. It looks like some of the war zones I've been in. So we need those local elected leaders to start taking a tougher stance, because that's what the Guard, that's what they're supporting, and they're supporting the law enforcement that in many cases have their hands tied.
Congressman, you see these images on the screen as you're talking, and this is our country. And Newt Gingrich earlier, right, the former Speaker of the House, was saying, looking at these monuments, graffitied, completely being attacked last night, saying, how are these our most precious and honored monuments, war memorials, not being better protected? But you take it even to the scene that we saw play out live last evening as Ed and I were covering what was happening in Philadelphia. We saw the scenes play out of squad cars getting run into each other with no one in it. They were lit on fire. We saw a Target completely being rioted and looted right before our very eyes with no police presence. So while the National Guard is supposed to coordinate and work with the police on the ground, what is happening, and why are we not seeing that in some of these most violent protests?
Well, I think you're seeing local leadership, the local elected leaders, some of these mayors that are telling the police, just let the rioters vent their rage. They're telling, and the National Guard is there in support of that and following that guidance. And I don't think that's what America wants to see anymore. Burning police cars, burning churches, destroying businesses that have already suffered from COVID. That is not what this country is all about. That is not peaceful protest. It dishonors the memory of George Floyd, Martin Luther King, and others. Here's where the federal government can step in, and these meetings are happening in the White House as we speak.
Right now.
We can take down organizations like Antifa, their leadership, their financing, how they're communicating, just like organized crime and just like terrorist organizations. That's what the FBI and others should be focused on going forward.
To your point, those meetings happening at the White House, the president meeting with our state's governors, deciding what is next in all of this. Congressman, the governor's in meeting with the president. Congressman Waltz, thank you. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you.